The message arrived like a bullet in the dark. Not a sound, just the blue glow of a phone screen slicing through the quiet bedroom at 11:47 p.m. The kind of light that doesn't illuminate, only exposes. Kyle Masters didn't need to read the whole thing to know life, as he knew it had just flatlined. Can't wait to feel you again tomorrow. You make me forget I'm married. The name flashing above the words, Troy B. Emily's phone. His wife's phone. The woman breathing softly beside him, one hand curled near her cheek like a child. For a long minute, Kyle just stared at the screen reflected in her silver-framed mirror across the room, proof of betrayal shimmering like a phantom. 20 years in cybersecurity had trained him to spot threats before they struck. But this one had already hit, quiet and clean, right through the ribs. Outside, rain whispered against the window. Inside, the air thickened with a silence that felt almost electric. He reached out, not to touch her, but to make sure she was real, still the same Emily who once danced barefoot in their first apartment, who sang off-key lullabies to their daughters, who promised forever under an oak tree in June. Now she was a stranger wrapped in familiar skin. Kyle slipped out of bed, padded barefoot to his home office, and sat before the glow of multiple monitors. Lines of code scrolled down his screen, but his eyes were somewhere else. Habit guided his fingers to connect Emily's cloud backup. He shouldn't. He knew that. But the message had already opened a door he could never close. 2 minutes later, he was staring at a string of deleted conversations, hotel receipts, encrypted photos, half-typed messages never sent. Tomorrow, same place? Can't stop thinking about Vegas. Delete this after reading. The ache in his chest didn't come from shock. It came from confirmation. He closed the laptop and pressed his palms together like a man trying to pray but forgetting the words. From down the hall, a small voice broke the tension. Daddy? 8-year-old Jenna stood in her doorway, hair tousled, holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear. You okay? She asked sleepily. Kyle forced a smile. Bad dream, sweetheart. Go back to bed. She nodded, trusting him the way children trust gravity, and padded back to her room. He waited until her door clicked shut before whispering, Yeah, bad dream. But the dream wasn't his, it was theirs. And it was ending. Morning arrived soft and golden, the way betrayal never should. Emily moved through the kitchen in a red dress that looked like it belonged to someone else, someone lighter, freer, unburdened. She hummed as she poured cereal for the girls, her laughter bright and hollow. Mom's phone keeps buzzing, Jenna said between spoonfuls. It's work, baby, Emily replied too quickly, scooping up her phone like it might explode. Big clients need fast replies. Kyle sipped burnt coffee, his mind replaying last night's messages on a loop. Can't wait to feel you again tomorrow. She kissed his cheek on her way out, her perfume sharp and sweet. Showing in Plano. Late night. Don't wait up. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The mask she wore was flawless, until you'd lived with it long enough to see the cracks form. When the front door closed, silence expanded across the house, thick as smoke. Kyle walked to the window and watched her white BMW curve out of sight, leaving behind the illusion of normal life. His reflection stared back from the glass, tired eyes, unshaven jaw, the kind of man who fixed other people's firewalls but failed to protect his own heart. His phone buzzed. Derek Martinez. Old friend. Former cop. Now a private investigator who owed him a favor. You sound like hell, Derek said as soon as Kyle picked up. What happened? Kyle hesitated, then spoke with the precision of a man dictating a crime report. Her name's Emily. My wife. She's having an affair. I need to know who with, how long, and how bad it is. A pause. Then Derek's low whistle. You sure you want to lift that rock? Might not like what's under it. I already don't, Kyle said quietly. Just bring me the truth. He hung up and stared at the framed photo on his desk. Him, Emily, and the girls at the beach last summer. Everyone smiling. Everyone pretending the tide could never pull them apart. He turned the picture face down. The rain had stopped outside, but in his chest, the storm was just beginning. By Thursday, the house didn't sound like home anymore. It sounded like a waiting room, too clean, too quiet, filled with people pretending not to notice something dying in the corner. Kyle caught himself studying Emily the way he used to study code, searching for the bug that broke everything. She'd started humming again. She only hummed when she lied. Over breakfast, Sophie asked, "Mom, why are you wearing perfume this early?" Emily smiled too fast. "It's part of the job, sweetie. Clients remember the little things." Kyle watched her tuck hair behind her ear and slide her phone face down on the counter. The movement was small, but it echoed like thunder in his head. She left 10 minutes later in a rush of perfume and excuses, leaving her coffee half full and lipstick prints on the rim, evidence disguised as routine. Kyle spent the rest of the morning in his home office, staring at screens that showed him nothing new. He'd designed network defenses for billion-dollar companies, but now he was chasing digital ghosts through his wife's messages. Derek's call came at noon. "Got something," he said. "Your wife's mystery man goes by Troy Baxter. 41. Runs a digital marketing firm downtown. Drives a red Porsche that screams midlife crisis. I did some digging, company's a front. The guy's knee-deep in crypto scams." Kyle's throat went dry. "You're sure it's him?" "Sure enough that I tailed them last night," Derek said. "They met at the Valmir Hotel. She didn't stay long, but they didn't need to. I've got photos." There was a sound like something small breaking inside Kyle's chest, but his voice stayed steady. "Email them." When the photos arrived, they weren't obscene. Just undeniable. Emily standing too close to a man with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. Her smile looked new, lighter, reckless. The kind of smile she used to save for him. Kyle zoomed in on her hand brushing Troy's arm. A simple gesture, but it was the moment his world finished cracking. He closed the laptop, set his phone aside, and sat perfectly still. For years, Kyle's life had been measured in predictable rhythms: school drop-offs, work emails, bedtime stories. Now everything had shifted by half a beat, and he couldn't find the melody anymore. That evening, when Emily came home, she brought laughter that didn't belong to this house. "The showing went great," she said, dropping her keys into the bowl by the door. "We might have a buyer by Monday." "Really?" Kyle asked. His tone was neutral, but his eyes were sharp. "What's the client's name?" She blinked. "Huh! The client. The one you showed the house to." "Oh, Rick. Or Rich. Something like that. You don't remember?" Emily laughed lightly, but her eyes darted away. "Long day, babe. Can we not do this?" Kyle nodded slowly. "Sure." He watched her pour a glass of wine, her hand trembling slightly as she lifted it. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. Or maybe she'd already stopped seeing him altogether. He wanted to shout, to demand the truth, to ask her how many lies it took to stop feeling like a person. But the girls were upstairs doing homework, and the last thing he wanted was for their home to echo with shouting. So he swallowed it down, the anger, the disbelief, the grief, and let it burn quietly behind his ribs. Later, when the house went dark, Kyle lay awake listening to Emily's even breathing beside him. He thought about the word trust. In his world, it was a firewall setting, a permission granted only to safe systems. Once broken, it could never be restored. He turned and studied her in the soft wash of moonlight. She looked peaceful, untroubled. Maybe in her dreams she was still the woman who sold houses by day and laughter by night. Maybe in those dreams she still loved him. Kyle reached for his phone and typed a message to Derek. "Keep digging. I need to know everything." He hesitated, then deleted it. He already knew enough. What he needed now wasn't more proof. It was purpose. 2 days later, Emily mentioned another girls' trip to Las Vegas. "Just 3 days," she said, breezy as ever. "Networking with some luxury clients." The lie was so thin he could see daylight through it. Kyle smiled politely, kissed her on the cheek, and said, Have fun. She didn't see the quiet resolve behind his eyes, the shift from wounded husband to something colder, more calculating. As her car pulled out of the driveway, Kyle opened his laptop again. Lines of code filled the screen, but this time it wasn't about work. He was building something that would expose the truth in a way she could never erase. Because the thing about secrets, Kyle thought as the screen's glow reflected in his eyes, is that once you drag them into the light, they stop belonging to the liar. They belong to the world. The house felt emptier without Emily, but not in the way Kyle expected. It wasn't silence that haunted him, it was the noise that had stopped. No perfume lingering in the hallway. No hollow laughter echoing off the kitchen tiles. Just absence, pure and surgical. For the first time in months, Kyle could breathe without pretending. And that's when Derek called. "You sitting down?" Kyle swiveled in his chair, already knowing what came next would hurt. "Go ahead. I traced the Vegas trips. Your wife's been meeting this Troy Baxter for over a year. She's not just sleeping with him, she's working for him." "Working?" "Not in real estate," Derek said grimly. "He runs online cons, fake investment pitches, crypto scams, adult content blackmail schemes. She's in deep, Kyle. I've got footage, bank records, even a burner account under her name." Kyle rubbed his temples, the words falling like slow-motion debris. "She's being manipulated." "She's being paid," Derek corrected. "And there's more. She's been pulling money from your joint account. College funds, too." The line went quiet for a long moment. Finally, Kyle asked, "How much?" Derek exhaled. 200 grand. Something inside Kyle went still, not rage, not sorrow, but a kind of stunned emptiness. Like the floor had been removed and he was still waiting to fall. "She's not the woman you think she is, man," Derek said softly. "I think," Kyle replied, voice low, "she's exactly the woman I refuse to see." When Emily returned that Sunday night, she carried the chaos of another world on her. Designer bag, tired smile, eyes that didn't meet his. She poured herself a drink before even setting down her suitcase. "Long flight?" Kyle asked. "Exhausting," she sighed, rubbing her neck. "Vegas is glamorous, but it drains you." "Yeah," Kyle said quietly. "I bet." He watched her like an investigator at a crime scene, cataloging details, gestures, inconsistencies. She looked beautiful. Broken, maybe, but still beautiful. It made everything worse. He wanted to ask if she ever thought about their daughters during her nights in Vegas. But part of him already knew, guilt doesn't stop people who are drowning. It just teaches them to swim with heavier pockets. That night, he couldn't sleep. He sat in his office, staring at Derek's folder, photos, transaction logs, screenshots. Proof. The kind that ends marriages, or ends people. Kyle thought of his daughters, Jenna's drawing pinned to his corkboard, Sophie's science project still sitting on the table. They deserve truth, but not this kind of truth. He picked up the folder, ready to burn it, when Emily's phone, forgotten on his desk, buzzed. A message preview glowed across the screen. "Flight landed. You were incredible this weekend. Can't wait for next time." No name, just a red heart emoji. The pain came rushing back like the tide. He opened her messages. His rational mind told him to stop, but his fingers kept moving, navigating through encrypted chats and deleted photos. And there it was, video thumbnails, transaction confirmations, even wire transfers under false business names. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was an accomplice. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was criminal. For a long time, Kyle stared at the evidence, then at his reflection in the black screen. His face looked unfamiliar, like a man mid-construction, half human, half strategy. He opened a new folder on his computer and titled it Truth. The next day, he called Derek. "I want everything admissible," Kyle said flatly. "Not gossip. Not speculation. I want a digital paper trail that could make the devil blush." "You're thinking divorce?" "I'm thinking exposure." Derek hesitated. You sure that's the road you want to take? You go nuclear, there's no coming back. Kyle's voice hardened. There's nothing to come back to. That night, while Emily tucked the girls into bed, Kyle sat in the living room, lights dimmed, laptop open. He drafted a slideshow, images, screenshots, timelines. Each slide another nail in the coffin of their marriage. He wasn't doing it out of anger anymore. It was clarity, a cold sense of justice wrapped in personal ruin. When Emily came downstairs, she stopped in the doorway. You're up late again, she said lightly. Yeah, he murmured without looking up. Working on a presentation. What about? He finally met her eyes. Transparency. Something flickered behind her expression. Fear, recognition, or maybe just the instinct of someone who'd finally realized she'd been caught. She turned away, muttering something about taking a shower. Kyle closed the laptop, the faint reflection of her retreating figure dancing across the screen. For years, he'd protected secrets for a living. Now, he was about to weaponize them. And in that moment, sitting alone in the glow of his own creation, Kyle understood something brutal and liberating. He wasn't the victim anymore. He was the reckoning. The night before the fall festival, the air in the master's household carried a strange calm, the kind that sits right before a storm. Emily moved around the kitchen like a ghost rehearsing for normalcy. She folded napkins, checked the girls' backpacks, adjusted things that didn't need adjusting. Kyle watched from the doorway, silent. You're quiet tonight, she said finally. Just thinking, he replied. About work? About truth? She froze for half a second before recovering. Truth? She repeated too casually. That sounds heavy. Kyle smiled faintly. You'd be surprised how light it feels once you stop hiding from it. She didn't respond. Just poured another glass of wine and pretended the conversation hadn't just shifted tectonic plates beneath her feet. The next morning, the Westfield Elementary Fall Festival looked like a Norman Rockwell painting. Bright booths, kids with painted faces, the smell of caramel corn and cheap coffee hanging in the crisp air. Kyle arrived early, laptop bag slung over his shoulder, wearing the calm of a man whose decisions were already made. He wasn't nervous. He'd rehearsed this moment in his head 100 times. The part where justice stopped being abstract and finally had a face. Emily was already there, radiant and composed, shaking hands with other parents, her laughter sharp enough to cut glass. She didn't see him yet. Derek approached from the parking lot, blending into the crowd with his old detective's ease. You sure about this? He murmured when he reached Kyle. Kyle adjusted his tie. Not even a little. But it's happening. Derek studied him. She's still the mother of your kids. Kyle's jaw tightened. Then she should have thought about that before she became someone else's business model. Just keep it clean, Derek warned. You crossed the line, you can't uncross it. I crossed it months ago, Kyle said quietly. Inside the school auditorium, folding chairs creaked as parents settled in. The principal tapped the microphone. Before we begin today's festivities, we have a short presentation on digital safety for families, courtesy of one of our very own parents, Mr. Kyle Masters. Polite applause. Kyle walked to the podium, his pulse steady, his breath measured. Emily sat 3 rows back, smile frozen, eyes flicking between him and the laptop he placed on the table. Thank you, Principal Johnson, he began. His voice was calm, confident, the tone of a man used to explaining the invisible dangers of the internet. Today's topic is trust in the digital age. How to protect your family from online threats. He clicked to the first slide, a stock photo of a happy family. Most people think danger comes from strangers. But often, it's closer than we realize. A ripple of interest moved through the audience. Emily's hand tightened around her purse. Kyle clicked again. The screen changed. A cropped image appeared, a familiar face, carefully censored but unmistakable. Emily's face. Gasps scattered across the room. This, Kyle continued, his tone even, is a profile on a popular subscription-based website. It belongs to my wife. She's been filming and selling explicit videos with a man named Troy Baxter, currently under investigation for fraud and identity theft. Emily shot to her feet. Stop this. Kyle didn't. She's also been using private client data from her real estate business to help him run scams. And she funded their operation by draining our children's college accounts. Murmurs turned to outrage. Phones came out. Whispers spread like fire. The principal stood, flustered. Mr. Masters, I think this isn't about revenge. Kyle cut in. It's about awareness. Because sometimes the danger isn't outside your home, it's sleeping beside you. He closed the laptop. Silence followed. Not a single clap, just the hollow thud of truth landing where lies used to live. Emily stood trembling, mascara streaking down her cheeks. How could you do this to me? How could you do this to us? Kyle shot back. To them? He gestured toward the hallway, where Sophie and Jenna waited with their classmates. She took a step forward, voice breaking. I made mistakes. But you didn't have to destroy me. He held her gaze. You already did that yourself. I just turned on the lights. Emily fled the room, sobs echoing behind her. Parents stared, some whispering, others simply stunned. Derek stood in the back, expression unreadable. Kyle remained still for a moment, then gathered his laptop, his composure, and what little remained of his heart. Outside, the wind had picked up, scattering fallen leaves across the parking lot. Kyle stepped into the sunlight, but it didn't feel warm. He'd won, technically. But victory felt like glass in his hands, cold, sharp, and dangerous to hold too long. From across the lot, Derek called out, Now what? Kyle didn't answer. He looked toward the playground, where laughter carried on, untouched by adult disasters. He whispered to no one, Now comes the hard part. Because the truth wasn't free. It was just a down payment on everything that came after. Rain began just after sunset, soft at first, then steady, rhythmic, cleansing. It drummed against the windows of the quiet house, washing the world outside clean while leaving the one inside untouched. Emily hadn't come home since the festival. Kyle hadn't expected her to. But he hadn't expected what came instead, silence so deep it sounded like guilt. The girls were upstairs asleep. Their innocence was a fragile thing now, protected only by the truth he hadn't told them yet. They didn't know what their mother had done, only that she was sick and needed time. Words that carried mercy, not accuracy. Kyle sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the folder Derek had dropped off earlier that evening, a final report. Troy Baxter had vanished. The money trail led through offshore accounts, dummy corporations, encrypted transfers. Emily's name appeared again and again, each line another bruise in print. He didn't need to open it. He already knew how the story ended. He'd written the ending himself, in front of an auditorium full of witnesses. Now, sitting under the yellow hum of the kitchen light, the satisfaction had evaporated, leaving only a hollow ache where anger used to live. When the doorbell rang at 11:02 p.m., Kyle knew it was her. He opened the door to find Emily standing in the rain, soaked and shaking. Her mascara had bled down her cheeks like confession. In her arms, a single duffel bag. Can I come in? She asked, voice small. He stepped aside wordlessly. She entered like someone walking into her own funeral. For a long time, neither spoke. Only the rain filled the silence, tapping against glass, marking seconds like a metronome for regret. Finally, Kyle said, You shouldn't be here. I didn't know where else to go, she whispered. Try any place that isn't here. She flinched but didn't move. I lost my job. The brokerage fired me this morning. The real estate board's reviewing my license. My friends stopped answering my calls. She swallowed hard. You've made sure of that. Kyle stared at her. No, Emily. You made sure of that. I just told the truth. She stepped closer, desperation bleeding through her exhaustion. You exposed me in front of everyone we know. Our neighbors. Our daughter's teachers. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? He looked at her for a long moment. Do you have any idea what you did to me? The question hung there like lightning, brilliant, dangerous, gone too fast to stop. She tried to meet his eyes but couldn't. I was drowning, Kyle. You think I wanted any of this? Troy, he knew things. He made me believe there was no way out. There's always a way out before you cross the line, he said evenly. You just didn't want the one that cost you comfort. Her tears mixed with the rain on her face. Please. I'm pregnant. He froze. Yours? Emily nodded slowly. Yes. It's his. But he's gone, Kyle. He disappeared after you exposed us. I don't even know if he's alive. Kyle's stomach turned. The room felt smaller. He sat down heavily, running a hand through his hair. You came here for what, then? He asked finally. Help, she whispered. Just until I figure things out. He let out a bitter laugh. You burned down the house and came looking for shelter in the ashes. I know I don't deserve it, she said. But I don't have anyone else. For a moment he almost pitied her. Almost. But then he saw Sophie's school photo on the fridge, Jenna's drawings taped beside it, bright, innocent reminders of who this was really about. He stood. You need to go, Emily. I can't save you from consequences. You wouldn't believe how long I tried. Her breath hitched. So that's it? You're just done? I was done the night I read that text, he said quietly. Everything after that was just gravity. She looked at him, really looked, and in that moment, the defiance drained out of her. What was left wasn't anger or pride, but the weary surrender of someone who'd finally reached the bottom. She picked up her bag and walked to the door. For a second, she paused, hand on the handle. You know, she said softly, you think you destroyed me tonight. But the truth is, you destroyed yourself too. You just haven't realized it yet. Kyle didn't answer. The rain grew louder. She opened the door, stepped into the storm, and didn't look back. He stood there for a long time, watching her figure dissolve into the darkness. The streetlights flickered, casting reflections on the wet pavement that looked like ghosts. He whispered to the empty doorway. Maybe I did. Then he closed the door, turned off the light, and sat down at the table again. The folder was still there, waiting to be opened. He didn't touch it. He didn't need to. He already knew how destruction sounded, like rain, steady and endless, falling on a roof that once covered love. 2 years passed before the echoes stopped sounding like echoes. Time, Kyle learned, doesn't erase what happened, it just rearranges it into something you can live with. The girls grew taller. The silence in the house softened into something almost peaceful. There were new routines now, burnt pancakes on Sundays, movie nights that stretched too late, laughter that didn't have to fight through tension to exist. But every so often, he'd catch a shadow crossing Sophie's face or hear Jenna ask, Do you think Mom's okay? And realize the ghost hadn't left, just learned to whisper instead of scream. He'd answer carefully, the way one handles fragile truth. She's trying, he'd say. That's what matters. And most days, it was enough. Emily's name didn't come up much anymore, at least not in public. The scandal had cooled into a faint rumor, one of those stories people remembered only when they needed a reminder that perfection always cracks. But in private, she had been changing. Derek kept tabs, more out of habit than request. She'd moved to Arizona, working double shifts at a diner. No gambling. No scams. No Troy. Just quiet repentance and the slow, heavy work of rebuilding something resembling a life. When Kyle heard that, he felt nothing at first. Not relief. Not anger. Just an unfamiliar stillness, like an open window after a long storm. That was when her letter arrived. The envelope was plain, handwritten. His name in the same looping script that once signed birthday cards and love notes. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a letter that looked like it had been rewritten a dozen times. Kyle, this doesn't fix anything. I know that. But it's a start. I've been sober for 18 months. I've been going to therapy and working 3 jobs to pay back what I stole. This money is everything I've saved since the day you exposed me. I want it to go to the girls. They deserve what I took from them, and from you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I'm still here. Trying. Learning how to live without lies. Maybe someday, you'll believe I can be more than what I was. Tell the girls I love them, if that's still allowed. Emily Cow read it twice, then a third time. His first instinct was disbelief, his second was exhaustion. But by the fourth reading, he felt something he hadn't in years. Wait, leaving. Not forgiveness, not yet. But the hint of it. He folded the letter, placed it in the drawer beside the check, and stared out the window. The rain was back, soft, steady, relentless. Always the rain. A month later, he called her. Her voice trembled when she answered. Kyle? Yeah. A pause, then a small sound that might have been a sob. I didn't think you'd ever. I'm not calling for me. He interrupted gently. The girls want to see you. Silence. Then, do they hate me? They don't know you enough to hate you, he said softly. They just miss what they think you used to be. I can't promise I'll be what they need, she said, voice breaking. Then just be honest, Kyle replied. That's a good place to start. They met a month later at the Dallas Zoo. Neutral ground. Public. Safe. Emily looked older, thinner, but more real, like someone who'd finally stopped pretending to be unbreakable. The girls approached her cautiously, clutching each other's hands. Emily knelt to their level, her eyes shining. I know I don't deserve this, she said. But I'm so glad you're here. Jenna studied her for a moment before saying, You look different. I am different, Emily said. I had to be. They spent hours walking through exhibits, feeding giraffes, laughing at penguins. For the first time, there were no performances, just small truths spoken carefully between fragile people. And for Kyle, watching from a few steps behind, it wasn't about redemption anymore. It was about recognition. Seeing the person behind the mistakes and realizing she was human, too. That night, after tucking the girls in, Kyle found Emily on the porch, watching the last light fade from the horizon. You didn't have to thank me, she said quietly when he joined her. For letting me be here. I wasn't thanking you, he replied. I was thanking whatever's left of the good in both of us. She smiled faintly, tears in her eyes. You think there's still good in me? I know there is, he said. You're proving it one day at a time. They sat there in silence, the cicadas humming their tired song. I'm sorry, she whispered after a while. I know, Kyle said. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry too. For how I made you pay. You were right to. Maybe, he said. But right doesn't always mean kind. She nodded, eyes glistening. Then maybe kindness is the only thing left to learn. He looked at her, at the woman who had broken him and rebuilt herself from the shards. Maybe that's the point, he said. We survive the things that ruin us, not by forgetting, but by learning how to be gentle again. They sat there until the stars came out, two people who had once been enemies, now just tired survivors of the same wreckage. When she left the next morning, she hugged the girls, thanked Kyle, and promised to keep in touch. This time, Kyle believed her. As he watched her drive away, sunlight spilling across the road, he realized something simple but profound. Revenge had ended the marriage, but forgiveness was finally ending the story. And for the first time in years, he exhaled without pain.